Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We are excited that you joined us today for Co-working Live with Red Worldwide. And today is Monday. The day that we're recording this is Monday. And usually on Mondays, we talk about business structure and all things that help people to do business better. And so with that said, we are going to kind of jump in here today and really help people to see some things in a way that will be positive and powerful. We are so hopeful that you are able to extract something from today's session that is going to help to make your business all that it needs to be. And so when we talk about business structure and we look at it from the standpoint of a person who is just constructing their business from the ground up. I'd like to use the analogy of building a building or a house when you're looking at the business and seeing it from the standpoint of you putting scaffolding around it, laying a foundation at the very onset and putting things in place in the same way that you would build a traditional home or build a commercial building. We want to look at uh, how these um, thought processes come together, when we start talking about building a building and what it is that you can do, with your company. And so we've talked in the past about building structures or, business structures, building structures that you do to make sure that your business is effectively operating. And we looked at, a couple of different structures that you could have. And we talked at the very, very rudiments of, everything from the standpoint of protecting your legacy, looking at your business as an asset and seeing it in a way that helps you to become more um, conscious of the value of the company from the very beginning of your setting everything up. And so we've, in our previous sessions, talked about structures of the sole proprietor, and we've looked at, a person who might have decided that they needed a little bit more insulation for themselves, and they didn't necessarily want to be the business and have everything that they owned personally become at risk if there is any type of issue with the company, or for that matter, making themselves more vulnerable, and susceptible to other kinds of issues. And so what we did is we kind of broke down the concepts of different types of business, excuse me, business structures. And so in looking at that, we talked about the limited liability company and the corporation. We looked at S Corp elections that you can utilize for tax purposes. And all of those we've talked about in our previous sessions. And I want to offer to you today, if you missed those, please go back to our podcast and kind of scroll through, and we're going to make it easier for you to find exactly what you're looking for, in our descriptions of each one of the sessions. But we want you to, have access to those previous sessions. But today we're going to look at, some specific things that are probably not necessarily, something that people have paid attention to. So I'm going to tell the tale of two entrepreneurs, and there are two divergent paths that people could probably take. But due to your choice in business structure, it could early on affect the way your business is able to move in the world of commerce or not. And so these critical decisions really do make foundational choices um, kind of difficult, if you go the wrong path or go a path that might leave you more vulnerable. I mean, it could even lead to your success or failure. And it could also, affect your informed decision making, because when you don't set a structure that is protecting your concepts, your ideas, with giving you some stability, it does end up providing more of a challenge for you to move forward in business. So, even when we're looking at the business, we can look at it like and anchoring a tree. You nourish it. The right structure provides the stability and the support, and it forms the legal and operational foundations that determine how your business could withstand challenges and liabilities in the future. So, if we're going to look at this from this standpoint, I'm a person who loves gardening, and I know there are a lot of people who can really identify with this. When you choose the right soil, the environment in which you plant your business, it impacts how well the business can thrive. Um, Sometimes when, planting something in a place where the soil is very rocky and it's not able to get all of the proper nutrients because it's too that area may have been affected by chemicals or something else that, could have really depleted it from its nourishment, or nourishment opportunities. It doesn't have the proper nutrients to be able to nurture something that you plant in it. It really does, affect the growth of whatever it is you've planted. Well, in the same way, when you're looking at your business, the choice that you have to have the right soil affects taxation, it affects liability, it affects growth, potential, it affects your ability to attract investments. Selecting the right soil is crucial for long-term success. So let's kind of talk about that. Then I'll go backwards. When you have your company set up in a way that allows you the ability to easily show what the business's bills are, how much money the business makes, what the business has the potential to do, then if you're trying to attract funding, it becomes a lot easier for a funder to make a decision. Whether that funder is a bank or whether that funder is your aunt, okay, or your friend, or the friends and family, investments that sometimes come along when you have a business. It's easy for people to make a decision when they can see what the business is doing and they can see that the business is protected from vulnerability. I remember having a conversation recently with a client who had set their business up as a sole proprietor and, or set themselves up in business as a sole proprietor, because that's what it really is. And we talked about the fact that people do really invest in you when they're investing in your company. However, when they see that their money could possibly be at risk because of the type of business structure you have, then sometimes they may not be willing to go all in, or for that matter, invest at all, because of the fact that they're looking at a situation where if there's a slip and fall on your property, or if something happens where you created something and a person gets it, they don't necessarily use it the way that you intended, but it's harmful to them, and they decide to try to sue you. Unfortunately, everything that you have and own and everything that anybody else has contributed may be at risk based on the proper structure that you have not necessarily gone into for the type of business that you have. So some businesses, like if you're doing a multi-level marketing company, or some sort of at-home business, it might have occurred to you, well, I don't need to do a business structure. I'm okay. And this is not necessarily something that is a requirement. Just by doing this, I've kind of gotten myself into a situation where it's doing what I needed to do for me at this time. But I want you to be thinking about the fact that when you build a house, now let's go back to my house analogy again. If you build a house, you want to be building a house for the size family that you expect, not the one that you have now. So you're not going to go all in and spend all the money, to, build a house for 2 children when you really are planning to have 4, and especially if you're planning to have those 4 in the next 3 to 4 years. Okay. So it's just not something that you would really spend the time, the effort, or the money to do. So in the same way, when you're looking at your business, you want to be looking at the end game, your end result. What is it that you want this business to do for you, with you, and because of you over the next 5 years, over the next 10 years? And when you do that, then you're able to see things from a different perspective. Now, going back to my soil and my plant, you want to make sure that you're creating the company to have branches of growth. With a strong foundation, a business can grow and expand confidently, much like the branches, reaching out. They have the ability to reach out and really serve people, provide your widget, your gadget, or your services to people that are in the community that you intended to be serving. The structure should allow for flexibility and scalability, enabling the business to adapt and seize new opportunities as it evolves. Okay, so now going back to our tale of two entrepreneurs. So in looking at these two entrepreneurs, I want you to think about, the one, entrepreneur that actually may have really had it in their heart to build a very sustainable company, one that was, extremely beneficial to them, that was going to give them the time and the freedom that they really were looking to have at some point. But yet it didn't happen that way because they didn't start with that in mind. And so this particular entrepreneur starting the business, running the business, it did provide for them revenue. But at the end of the day, when they had been in business for maybe, 10 years or so, they realized that where they were kind of stuck. And it did not give them an opportunity to go out and get the funding that they would need to get unstuck. Sometimes when you start serving and your business grows beyond what you expected to too quickly, and you don't have all of the pieces in place, then unfortunately what happens is that you don't have the ability to scale. And so not having the ability to scale, you find yourself in a situation where even going to try to get, a loan or a line of credit will not help you serve the number of people that may be coming, to get the service that for the company that you have, or they may not be able to buy the widgets fast enough. I remember playing a simulation game when I was getting my MBA, and in the simulation game, we had to create widgets. These widgets we were creating had to be done in a certain way, and we had to have the supply chain management side of things working in the game, where we had enough widgets available for the people who were purchasing. And there were some unintended consequences for you're not creating enough, okay, because you didn't want to overspend your money and have too many widgets, especially if there were things that could possibly expire. You wanted to have the right amount of inventory. But on the same side of things, when you're looking at that from that way, you want to make sure you have enough, okay, for the people that you're serving, and a little extra just in case. Well, unfortunately, there were some things in this game that we just did not have the ability to see. One of those things is that we had a breakaway product where somebody really liked it and they started sharing it, and they became the sales team for the company to tell everybody about this wonderful little widget that my fictitious company in the game was creating. And we had people lined up at the door and wrapped around the building to purchase. And I didn't have anything to sell because we sold out so quickly that there was no way for us to create enough. Now, let me tell you what that could look like. And I know that this could resonate with some of you. It looks like this, okay? It takes 10 days to create whatever this was that I was creating, this widget. And we've got people wrapped around the building today. And sure, we could give them a rain check. I don't know if you guys remember the proverbial rain check. Back in the day, you go to the store and they were selling something and they were sold out. And so the store would give you a little piece of paper that said on it, rain check, that gave you the ability to come back and get it later when they had it in stock. Well, sure, we could do that. But in the game, it only allowed us the ability to do that for so many people because, unfortunately, if you give out too many rain checks in your normal production, you may not have the money to create that many widgets or gadgets, okay, in that short period of time, it's going to cost you more because you have to, of course, order the parts and you have to get them expedited and all of these things that have to happen when you're trying to serve, especially with a product in that way. Now let's look at how that could look. Let's talk about, because we haven't even talked about the other entrepreneur. We're just dealing with the first entrepreneur who has scheduled things in their business in such a way that it's not necessarily working out, to their benefit as much as possible, because they're going to lose money because of the expedite fee, because of all of the things that go into when you're not prepared to serve 5 times as many customers, okay, on any given day. So the other thing is when you're looking at this from a service standpoint, what this looks like for us in the service industry is that you have a calendar that has a certain amount of slots on it, and people go to book and there are no appointments for 6 months, okay? Because you have created, a wonderful product or, in your coaching or whatever it is that you're doing and the service that you're providing. However, you have a fulfillment issue because there's not enough people to serve the amount of people that you now have who want the service. And so that's another way of seeing this conundrum of a supply chain issue. The supply chain issue could be an issue because of a delivery problem, but it also could be an issue because you just don't have enough of what it is that you have been selling to go around for now the new customers that are asking for the service. And so what we want to do is create, for you the ability for you to not have that as a problem. We want to make sure that you are aware of how you can continue to serve people and serve them well, even though you might be a solopreneur, or you might have a small team, or for that matter, you might be in a position where things are not as easy for you to get, so that you can provide the actual product that you need to provide. And one of those things is you got to start with the structure, because when you have the right soil, then what happens is it makes it easy for you to go and get an infusion of capital when you need it, because people can see that, wow, you have customers that are waiting for your service, and you have, the structure that allows me to give you this money and wait for you to pay me back. Okay. And the likelihood of me getting paid back is high without you putting my money at risk because of the structure of your company. So that's a viewpoint that I really wanted you to have, because sometimes when we're looking at it from that standpoint, we don't see it that way. Now let's look at the other entrepreneur, right? This tale of 2 entrepreneurs. So we have the one entrepreneur that really was operating more as a sole proprietor. They weren't really thinking about structure in the way that, they might have needed to, and they waited a little too long to become, a more formal structure like the LLC, the corporation, or for that matter, a business trust. They didn't think about, some of the things that we talked about because they didn't know to think about it. But now we want to look at the concept of, someone who's that other business who decided, to put themselves in a position where they actually had these business structures in place. They were looking at their business from the standpoint of the data. What is my business telling me? They're looking at the history. And I'm not talking about the history from last year or last 2 years. I'm talking about the history from last month. They are paying attention every month to the things that are happening so that they can position themselves to have a thriving business, that in the time of adversity or in the time of other unforeseen challenges, the business choice that they made from the outset created for them the ability for sustainability and stability, okay, in their company. And just like a sturdy building needs a strong foundation, every successful business is built on the bedrock of their structure. It's not just about paperwork, it's about setting a stage for continuous growth, protection from risk, and prosperity. And so when we have these thoughts, we want to be looking at what do we do to shield ourselves from risk? How are we creating an opportunity for flexibility? Are we creating this necessary safety nets that we might need, when we have these structures in place? And for that matter, are we navigating our business through different types of hurdles in a way that makes sure that on the other side of it, we can stay in business? There are a lot of people who did really well in the middle of the pandemic. They were able to navigate that situation, and they stayed afloat. And then we look up in 2021 and we see an out of business sign. What happened? How could that happen? That a person who had their structures correctly set up and they were able to, transition their employees to doing work in a way that made sense for a pandemic, whether that meant that they were a restaurant and they started doing takeout, or whether it meant that they were, a service-based business that went online and started doing business on Zoom. But what happened after the pandemic is everything returned, sometimes quickly, for some industries, in a way that they were not able to restart services for, in a manner that people could and would use them. Let me give you an example of what that could look like. A business that, went completely online during the pandemic, not making any kind of provisions to have a building when we came out of the pandemic, or have a spot, if I can say it that way, that could be a kiosk, a pop-up, or whatever it is. They could have been in a lot of trouble if the other businesses in their industry and in their, neck of the woods, their proverbial, area where they serve, translated the concept of going back into business into a building that could have created competition that they were not ready for. And so I am saying to you that there are a lot of people that did not plan all the way down the end of the pike. They looked at this and said, okay, I can make it out of the pandemic if I just do this. But they didn't think about, okay, how do we prepare for what could happen if after the pandemic we go back to business as usual? What does business as usual look like for me now? Can I continue to do what I do and do it well enough that I have the revenues, to support what it is that I'm doing? Or will this mean that I'm going to have to start looking at some other options? What can I do in the business? Am I going to need another location, or do I need to partner with someone that has a location? One of the best business models I saw coming out of the pandemic were people who had previously had a location to provide certain services, food-based services, whether it be that they had a casual dining restaurant, or fast casual or something like that. And they went into a situation where they started using these community kitchens, where they would rent the space and cook and then deliver. And that was really successful for a lot of people. It kept them from having to close their doors. But after the pandemic, they realized that, okay, everybody's going back to restaurants. They're going indoors, and not a lot of people are still ordering the way that they were ordering before. How do I make this work? And so I saw some very interesting structures coming out of the pandemic for restaurants. I saw people beginning to partner, similar to the way that you see when you drive up to fast food and you'll see both the green burrito and Kentucky Fried Chicken all on the same right there in the same drive-through. It's one restaurant, but it's actually providing, or one building, but it's providing two restaurants with the opportunity to get their services provided, their meals sold right through the drive-through at Kentucky Fried Chicken, it's so quite interesting a concept. And we saw that with several different, fast food restaurants. And that was even before the pandemic. So doing something like that really helped some of our smaller restaurants who were having some challenges, to be able to share one building for two different types of restaurants. They sold two different kinds of foods, but they were both able to cross-pollinate their customers and, actually get the job done. How could that look like, or what could that look like in a service-based business? Well, being able to share, Zoom credentials and things of that nature and have webinars that attack two different areas, could mean that two different types of coaches that both actually provide services, but they do something a little different, could take their clients and retarget each other's clients for the services that they provide. And this happened for us at Red Worldwide, where we were able to partner with a couple of different entities, and we provide certain services that they don't provide to their group, and they provide certain services that we don't provide to our group, to our members. And making that available has been tremendously successful for a lot of our clients, because they can come to one place and they don't see anything any different on the front. Okay, but on the back end, some of the services that they're receiving are being provided by someone else who needed to have a group that they can provide those services to coming out of the pandemic. So what I'm saying to you is that we made some changes. We no longer do certain things, even though on the front, what you see is that you get the services that you needed. But on the back, we can concentrate on the services that we do best at, while we allow another team to bring to our members services that they do best at, right? So, these are really good opportunities for you to see some case studies, and to look at things that could possibly work for you, infusing something in your business that could help to make sure you have that safety net, or that way forward, to provide a service that could be costing you a lot more money to provide. So let's go back to my widgets and gadgets. When I was in the simulation, what I noticed is that there was an anomaly going on, and I was having this same problem every so many months. So by me looking at the data, I could kind of tell when the system was going to, end up in a situation where I didn't have enough of the widgets or gadgets. So I used the data to help me do better at making sure that I had the right amount of inventory for the potential clients that I could have. Now, I also recognize that my little widget and gadget process that I was using wasn't actually making me the type of money that I needed to make in order for me to continue to keep my profit where it needed to be. So I decided that one of those processes that I had, I could outsource, right? I could bring in, have some trucks do things a little differently for my deliveries. And instead of me providing certain things, I actually outsourced that to another type of delivery service that got it there faster. They did it all the way through, and I didn't have to concern myself with that. What could that look like for your business? Is there a situation or something that's powerful that you can put in place that would make it such that you don't have to spend the money to do those things, but yet you can get your client what they're looking for in a timely fashion? And again, the front-facing part of it is that they receive what they were going to receive from you. This could be the provision of services in a way that allows them to self-schedule, do on-demand classes, or for that matter, creating for them the opportunity to be in a group session as opposed to one-on-ones, and it could mean that you now reduce the amount of hours that you're having to spend on one-to-one clients, so that you have more time to actually concentrate on doing better and more quality services, if you are a service provider that's face-to-face with clients. It could also mean that if you were utilizing some other type of packaged form of, services that you could infuse into what you're already doing, that your clients get better quality there as well, because they're able to go in and get it now, today, all put together, instead of you taking the time to have to, structure things that have already been structured and that are not materially that different from what you're already doing. And so let me give you an example of what this looks like in the service business, and then we'll go to a retail situation so you can kind of look like what it looks like in retail. For us, what it meant is that we were able to go into providing our coaching services through a platform that was already structured and set up to serve our clients in a way that meant that they got everything that they needed, and it was right there available to them, that day. Okay, as opposed to us having to have a meeting with them and go back and structure something and make it available. And then we had to do the same thing for the next person. And it was taking so much time. And the amount of time that it was between the session that we have with the client and when the client actually received what it was that they were supposed to be working on was just tremendous. When we were able to put the value builder in place, that was our system that we were able to put in place. It had the things that we needed it to have to help our clients achieve the maximum value that their company could be worth. It also gave us the business planning component for that one-page business plan that we were using over at Lean Canvas before. We had 5 different systems to give what we were able to give the clients with one system, with Value Builder. And that was such a load off, if I could say it that way. And it could be customized for clients with just a few tweaks. And so that also gave us the load off. And we could customize it per industry with just a few more tweaks. And so what am I saying? I'm saying that what could you find that could be infused into your company so that you can serve your clients and not have to spend so much time to create everything that's needed, one thing after another. There are some systems that you can take advantage of that are going to do that for you very well. And then if you do need to create a system, you have the ability to utilize what you have available for the time while you are creating your system to replace it later on down the road. And so I can tell you that this has been a tremendous thing for us to do. I mean, very profound, the difference that our clients were able to see by having these tools in place that I didn't have to go and create. One more tool that we were able to utilize is through our business exchange. Previously, we were going to each and every vendor to get discounts for different things for our clients. And yes, it was, very powerful for them to be able to get discounted phone service through AT&T, discounted phones, landline phone service through Nextiva, and discounts, for flying. And we had discounts on our utilizing the different authorized net or Credit Plus or some of those services that some of you guys might know about. However, we actually were able to ditch those one-on-ones that we had to manage and deal with every one of the customer success persons at all those different companies and the customer support to try to make sure that the discount stayed in place and that we were able to offer it to clients in a way that they, were able to experience it. The experience was something that was really good for them. We didn't have to deal with customer service calls or any of that because we were offered to use a particular service that unified all of our discounts. And by doing that, now our red members can take advantage of lots of different kinds of discounts that we didn't even have before, hundreds of discounts that we could not have put together ourselves, if we had been working on it for 4 or 5 years. It just took a long time to establish relationships to get a meaningful discount. So we're not talking about 2% or 1% off or $1 off. We're talking about some of those things, 50%, 25%, 10% off, and so this is something that we were really excited about. And, in a separate session, we'll go through our um, business exchange website so you can see some of the exchanges that you as a red member could take advantage of. But in the meantime, those are the ways that we did it. Now, what could you do in retail? Well, in retail, you could do some of the same things. We see inside of different stores products that were made by other types of distributors, and they place those items, in the store with no problem. To give you an example, when you go to Walmart, you can find Starbucks coffee, okay? Because Starbucks is selling through Walmart. You can find all types of, products that are actually designed, developed, produced, distributed from one store in another store. Why? Because it's easier for them to not have to create a signature coffee themselves and just provide the ones that are available that people like, and they know that they'll be able to sell that at a certain price point and get the profit for it. And so I am saying to you, what product could you put in your establishment that is a product maybe from another establishment that has a different brand than you, but it gives you the potential for a sale that you might not have had if you had to create that yourself and get people used to using it and liking it, etc. And then later on down the road, after you created your signature coffee, you can begin to replace some of the Starbucks products with products that are yours. But it does give you the ability to start somewhere and to do something that is going to bring you customers. One of the things that I used to really adore is when I would go into a 7-Eleven store and see on the counter, all of the little cakes and pies that were local vendors' products. That just was so enticing to me because I was able to get an opportunity to taste some of someone's pound cake that made it at home in their kitchen, hopefully utilizing all the right, the health rules. But the bottom line is it had their label on it, and it was like, this is Mama T's crumb cake or whatever. And so I was able to go to that 7-Eleven, and maybe one a few blocks over, and I couldn't get it anyplace else, but I was happy to get Mama T's crumb cake from that 7-Eleven. And that was such an awesome thing because the two vendors made a decision that they could, cross promote. 7-Eleven wasn't making crumb cake or pound cake, and Mama T's didn't have a store, okay? But she could gladly drop off her crumb cake every 2 days and make sure that it was fresh for people who were coming in, paying for gas, okay, or buying, something to drink at the 7-Eleven and seeing it on the counter, said, oh, I want some of this, and they would purchase. So I want you to be thinking about this, how is this going to relate to your business? What is it that your company can do that is going to, help to create these safety nets and position you, through these partnerships, that you can establish with other vendors that helps your business to become more stable and sustainable. Sometimes I really want you to think about that there are some roads that are less traveled, and there are reasons that they're less traveled. But even though they may be the less traveled road, it may not be that you should count them out. So this might not be a common path, for you to go down and look at, some of the things that we've talked about today, because you might not see a lot of people doing it. You may get pushback from this person or that person that you talk to about it. But I am saying to you that your business is your business, okay? And it is your responsibility to do the research to see if these things we've been talking about will benefit you. And having done the research, and wanting to move forward, I can tell you that you can evolve to a place that will make your company not just, one that has revenue potential, but a revenue potential that you realize. So this has been Patience Rose with the Co-working Live session today. And for Red Worldwide. We really are excited that you've joined us, and we hope that you've been able to extract value from what it is that we've been talking about today with your business structures. And we want to make sure that we can help you do business better. So do know that if you really are interested in going further after you watch this video, you can go to redworldwide.org, and there are some specific places on our website where you can click to set an appointment, or learn more about some of the services that we offer and decide how you want to proceed. We have classes that we have available on our site, and we are really interested in making sure that you have the best possible outcome when you start your business. We'll see you next time.